Are we going live? All right, I'm going live. So now I'm waiting for you. All right, just wait a minute or so until we get some people around, and then we will go on with today's show. So let's see here. Cool. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is John Bowman. I'm a discus thrower, and I love to throw discus and to teach people how to throw farther. One of my goals with going live is to, create some new discus content, to get a direct line to you to answer some of your questions, to just another way to create content. So I'm just rambling here for a second as we get rolling. Just so you know, so one of the goals with this live, I'm going to go live on Monday nights around 7, best I can, 7 Eastern time, and I want to answer your questions. So tonight I will be fielding questions around 7:15, 7:20 Eastern time. So feel free to comment and leave your questions in the comments, and I will answer a few of those. Until then, just kind of want to give you an update on my own training. So if you've watched much of my content over the last couple of years, you know that I have, after a time away from throwing, I have come back to the sport. So quick history. So I threw in college, and I threw for a few years after college. I set my personal best of 211 feet in 2011. And then I competed at the 2012 U.S. Olympic Trials. At the 2012 year, after that year, I stopped throwing for 3 years. So then, kind of in 2015 and then into 2016, I started to train again. And kind of my channel has been kind of how I've just captured these last few years. And so when I first started with my channel, a lot of it was just my own training videos, things that I was doing, and then it has turned into this teaching channel community where all of us are here trying to go for throwing. So currently, I have trained consistently since February of 2018. So it's kind of been off and on in 2015, 2016, 2017. I had good months, I had bad months. I struggled to have good training. But in 2018, in February, I decided that no more screwing around. I'm not stopping anymore, and I am going to go after this. And what I'm going after is to throw far again, to throw 200 feet again, and Lord willing, to throw a PR again. None of that is guaranteed. And it has been a harder journey than I would have thought. But that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going for. And all of this discus stuff that I do and I produce and I create, all of this is to help me reach my goals. And what I've learned, though, is one of the best ways for me to reach my goals and to throw far again is to bring people along, which is what this is. So that is, so that's kind of my brief history. So here in the last, this past year, 2020, obviously was a little bit weird with the COVID stuff happening, not having a season. So I never competed this year. I did complete good training. So once I found out that the season stuff was going to be canceled, the Olympics were postponed, everything was postponed, I reset my training. This would have been in March. Because at that time I would have had 15 months or so to prepare for the next U.S. Olympic trials, which would be now 2021. I trained really good all the way through all the way through July. In training, I ended up going 55-71, I think, so like in the 180s or so, which was pretty good. But ending in July, as I was finishing up that month of training, I started to develop some knee pain, which isn't super new for me. And I took August and September and most of October off from training, which was good. I had trained, like I had said, like non-stop, like really well since February of 2018, and so just giving me a chance to recover a little bit, and it did. I was able to recover quite a bit. Currently, my knee feels pretty good, and I'm completing good training again. But I did take a little bit longer break than I thought. So that's a lot of background information. What I'm doing now is, so I am preparing for the 2021 season. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know. I have no idea what it's going to look like, what meets will look like. But what I can control is my own training. And so right now, my training is 4 days a week. I have 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days. Now, within those 4 days of weight training, conditioning, there is some Olympic movements, but most things are tailored. Like I'm 34 and I've been training hard for years and years and years. And so I know my body, I know what helps me throw far. And so right now my goal is to get as strong as I possibly can, get in as good a shape as I possibly can, protect my body. So I know I have a tendency to have a sore back. I know I have a tendency to have sore knees. And so build my training to protect my training, if that makes sense. And then along with that, get in as best shape as possible, get as strong as I possibly can, and then just keep throwing as much as I can. So right now, my work, I coach discus, I coach shot put, and so all week long, I'm in the realm of discus technique and shot put technique. And so what I've learned over the last several years is that all those hours of coaching, hundreds of hours of coaching, directly impacts my ability to throw. And so like the other day, for example, I hadn't thrown for a few weeks. Like remember my knee was sore, and so I take some time off, and then since the summer I've only thrown every few weeks. But the other day I threw, and I had as much feeling as I had ever had, with what you would say very little actual throwing volume. But the response I get from coaching, because the way I coach, I am into it, I'm thinking about it, I'm always figuring out how to help that person throw farther. Well, consequently, I get essentially a drill practice. So all these hours of coaching essentially for me as an athlete serve as drill sessions, which have been wildly productive. And so obviously I need more than just coaching, but the coaching I'm doing only helps my own throwing, so that when I am going out to throw, it's more productive, it's fresh on my mind, I know what to think about, that kind of stuff. So I am doing conditioning 4 days a week. I will throw probably at least for the next 5-6 weeks, probably 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week. And those sessions will be, the throwing sessions, for example, I will be working on specific things. So maybe there'll be sessions where I work on the pushing motion, how to work the back leg, the right side. Then we get other sessions where I'm working on out of the back of the ring. And so it'll be very specific, focused technique workouts. So that's kind of what I've got. That's what I've got for the next 6 weeks. I'll reevaluate after Christmas and the new year, and then I'll just replan based on my schedule and what I've got going on. So enough of me. I'm going to look here to see if we've got some comments. We have one. That's good. Hey, and just to remind you, at 7:15 I'm going to go and answer some questions. So if you have a question, feel free to put that in the comments or in the chat, and I will get to those. Right now we've got a couple. That's in 3 minutes. I will start answering some questions. Hey, while we're waiting, here is a new shirt. So I'm coming out with, I'm doing some new things, right? So this live show or whatever I'm doing Monday nights is a piece of it. As the months go by, as we roll into track season, you'll see kind of the direction I'm taking this channel, kind of doing some new projects and some new just ways to be creative in teaching discus, right? Because they can get the same old stuff all the time. Anyways, part of that is new merch. I love messing around with logos and design and ideas, and this shirt is one I've come up with. I really like it. I have another one. If you go to my Teespring store, which I don't know if it's available right now. I guess I could check. On the replay of this, if you're watching this not live, underneath this video, you'll see my merch bar. So there's a couple different shirt designs. This is one of them, and then this is the mug. I don't know if you like coffee, but I do, and I like to drink coffee out of cool things. So if you want to support me, I have some merch. I got some cool shirts and a sweet mug. Let's start. I've got one question. Again, I want to answer some of your questions. So I am beginning that now. So feel free to put that in the chat. All right, this is a great question. This is from Ryan G. He says, my son wants to know if it's beneficial to practice with different weight discus, or if he should just stick with the discus weight for his age. Thanks. Okay, so there's two sides to this point. Throwing a variety of weights is good. This is how to do it. I think that, and it depends on the age. If he's a middle schooler or a high schooler, throwing different weights isn't as important as maybe when you're throwing the 2K in college or you go into the heavy things. But here's why. Because when you're first throwing, the most important thing you can do is learn technique. And I am 100% about technique first, because it's the positions that we're in that actually create distance. And that's what I say that all the time, positions create distance. And so there are things you can do to tweak your training, to get different training stimulus. And one of those ways is with varying weights, but none of that is as effective unless your technique is good. So here's what I'll say to that to make an answer. Most of the time, just throwing the competition weight is good enough. So a quick story, in 2011, so I was 24 at the time. I was 24 years old. I was throwing professionally with Global Throwing. In that first year working with Global Throwing, my coach's goal was to fix my technique, improve my technique. And I only ever threw the 2K, or at least what I can remember, 99% of my throws were with my competition discus, because I just needed to work on my technique. And that year I improved. I ended up throwing my PR 64.5 meters, 211 feet. And so it's the technique that makes you throw farther. Now, so let's just say you've got technique and you're working on that. The way I like to use different weight discuses is to create variety in training. So if you're training and throwing 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, then I think adding in some days when you throw a light discus and adding in some days when you throw the heavy discus is very useful. Because if you've done this for any length of time, you'll know that discus can get boring. At least the monotony of doing the same thing over and over again. So if you have access to some different weights, absolutely. A lot of times I like to use the heavy discus if you're going to do stand throws or maybe even half turns. And then I like to use the light discus if you're going to do a lot of full turns in a practice. And again, I'd love to use that as variety. I would say if you're going to throw 5 days a week, you could have 3 days with the regular weight, 1 or 2 days with the lightweight, and maybe 1 or 2 days with the heavyweight. That's kind of what I would go there. So it's kind of a long way to answer that question, but if you always got to keep technique first in mind, and then once that's there, or once you have a system of training in place, then totally fine to add in some different weight discuses. Okay, next question. So this is from Graydon. I am in high school and I really enjoy throwing. My team doesn't really have a throwing coach, so we basically teach ourselves. So what is the best advice in terms of how I should be training? So Graydon, I understand where you're at. So I did receive world-class teaching after I was in college, but through most of my throwing career, in the middle school and in high school and in college, large chunks of time I was on my own, and a coach wasn't there to help me. And so so that's, as frustrating as that is, that's not too unique. A lot of throwers end up in that situation. The best thing I would suggest, advice on how you should be training. So we'll lay it out simple. There's two things that help you throw farther. One is technique, and then the other is strength and conditioning or athleticism. And so when you are looking at how to train, you just need to make sure both of those things exist in your training. Are there days that or practices specifically that you're working on your technique? And then are there practices where you're specifically working on getting stronger and being more athletic? And so a general layout could be a basic layout. If you're working on technique throwing 2 or 3 days a week, and you're working on getting stronger and getting more athletic 2 or 3 days a week, you will see progress with that. So I know that's a kind of a general outline, but that will work. That will get you to farther throws. When it comes to the details, the fact that you're on my channel and you are a part of this community, you're going to learn a lot of technique from this. Now, I understand watching a video is not the same as having a coach right there on you, but you will understand and learn the concepts of what good technique is. You can learn that from YouTube. You can learn that through video. So I would recommend continue to do that. When it comes to the strength training side and conditioning, totally depends on your situation, what facilities you have, what education you have at your school. But you need to do things like squats and deadlifts and bench press and power cleans as basic things, even some medicine ball throws, some short sprints, box jumps. Those are the kind of things that will transfer over to throwing really well. So, okay, I've got another question. Abby's there. I don't know if I said that right. So I've been recovering from a surgery from my foot for a year now, and I've wanted to do discus and shot put in my high school, but I'm a bit scared of doing it since I don't know if my foot could do it. So I'm not a doctor, nor an athletic trainer, so you can take my advice with a grain of salt. But depends on what the surgery is, and if you broke it and had pins on it, your doctor should be able to tell you if you can or cannot go back to training. If he says yes, your foot's not going to get any worse, you go ahead and start training, then I think part of it you just got to trust it and go with it. So I am no stranger to injury. When I was in high school, I broke my back. I had 4 fractures in my vertebrae and a bulged disc and a bone chip. So I was out for a year. I had to wear a cast, from like this. And when I returned to sport, I was nervous about that too. And I remember my doctor saying it. He said, "Let pain be your guide, but you're not going to hurt it worse." So what he was saying was the bones have healed, the injuries have healed, go train, but be smart. And so that's my advice I would give to you, is if the doctor has given you a go-ahead, then let pain be your guide. And there may be a period of time as you're getting back into training that your foot hurts a little bit. That's okay. And you just kind of go do what you can around that. And then my guess would be over the course of time that foot will start feeling better and you will be able to do more training and more training. But I understand injuries are tough, but I would go for it. Again, if your doctor said that that's something that you can do. All right, guys, that looks like that's it for the questions right now. Just for those of you, if you've just joined, I am answering questions. So if you have a question, I'll hang on here for a few more minutes, and you can put it in the comments in the chat, and I will answer your question. Again, if you guys are new to the stream right now, I am going live Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and kind of my goal with this is to build a relationship with you, to kind of give you an in if you've got questions about training, a place where you can ask those questions. Again, I'm intending to do this Mondays at 7 p.m. You are always welcome to join me. Hey, all right. Love it, man. Again, I'll stay on for about another minute, and we'll see if there are additional questions. Remember, if you like coffee, here's my commercial. You can get a sweet mug from my Teespring store. You should be able to find that below this video. If not, I'll put it in the description when we're done here. I got another question. Here we go. Charlie. Hi, John. I've never done discus before, but I decided to start a few months ago to keep busy during quarantine. I'm using a 1K right now. When would you suggest to move to a heavier one? So I'm going to assume that maybe you should be throwing, based on your age, maybe the 1.6. If so, I would say if you've been throwing the 1K for a couple months or since quarantine, you can move to the heavier discus anytime now. What I would do is I would give yourself a 2-week acclimation window when you move into a heavier implement. So anytime you pick up a heavier discus, it's going to feel weird, it'll be a little bit hard, and your technique will want to crumble a little bit. So give yourself 2 weeks, mess around with it, play with it in the grass, get some light throws under your belt. But I would say go for it, man. Have fun with the heavier discus, and yeah, I would do that. Hey, we've got a couple more questions coming in. Thrower Strong training team. How do you split up heavy implement throwing days with regular weight days? It's a good question. I touched on this a little bit earlier. On a heavy implement day, I typically work on the front half of the ring or the pushing part. So working on stand throws, working on what I call moving stand throws, half stand throws, and even up to the half turn. When you have the heavy implement, it's really easy once you start spinning a lot to really like pull and bring the discus in. And once you're doing that in discus, you are that's rough. That your technique starts to go down the tube really fast. So what I like to do is, if we're going to throw a heavy discus, the point of that is to get stronger, to get discus specific strength. And so the way you're going to utilize your specific strength is through that pushing portion of the technique. And so crank out stand throws, crank out the moving stand throws and half turns, where you can really focus on keeping the discus back, keeping the separation with your shoulders. When it comes to regular throwing days, of course, you're going to be working on maybe more of the rotational side of things out of the back of the circle, and then it's just normal. Then you're a little bit less likely to have your technique break down with that. It's a great question. Okay, another question here from Dre. I have a problem with holding my torque when I land in my power position. When my left foot lands, my discus is not far back. Do you have any advice to create more torque? Is my abs too stiff? Okay, that is a great question. So what he's referring to is just landing open at the front of the ring. So like when that left foot comes down, essentially the chest facing the side rather than back. And so there's the if you go backwards to why, you got to always look at why that happens. So why are you landing open? Essentially what's going on is either your left foot is moving too slow from the back to the front, which means it's coming off the ground too late, or as your left foot is coming around, your left shoulder's going with it. So you have to find the feeling of your shoulders and feeling of your left foot. You have to separate that feeling. You got to be able to move your shoulder back towards the front of the ring while you're moving your left foot towards the front of the ring, and that's what keeps that torque that you're looking for. The other way to approach this is when you're coming off your left foot in the back, you have got to pull that left foot off the ground as soon as possible. You want that left foot to pop off the ground so that your right foot can come down, so that your left foot can come down. So everything kind of comes to the left foot needs to move faster, and that's what gives you more torque. All right, another question here. What exercise can help me turn my hips better when doing a full spin? And do I stay standing straight because I have a tendency to lean a bit? Let me read that again. Can help me turn my hips better. Okay, so I think the question is, how can I turn better when doing the full spin? So what I like to teach, so when we're doing the spin through the circle, if you look, you break your body into 3 planes. So you have your shoulders, you have your hips, and you have your knees. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some variation to this, but essentially, when you're thinking about the throw, you want your hips, you want your shoulders and your hips and your knees to all move level as you move through the circle. So rather than big swings up and down with our shoulders and our hips, everything we need to be wide and level. So that's the kind of basics. Once we're level in the shoulders, hips, and knees, as we move nice and wide, we spin easier. But the second piece to that to spin better during the full spin is you have to lock in your ankles and your knees and your hips. So it's really easy when we spin to let our ankles and knees and our hips get loose and weak. And all that does that's what creates the kind of up and down movements. And it kind of just throws everything off, and it makes our feet stop turning. So I mean, basically when we're doing the full spin, everything hinges on how well our feet turn on the ground. But in order to turn the feet well, the ankles and knees have to be tight and rigid. You got to hold those positions. And then in order for them to be tight and rigid, you have to be aware that your shoulders and hips and knees are level as you do all the spin. So that's kind of what you're going to do. It's kind of a long answer, but everything comes down to strong, tight positions in your lower body and being level all the turns. That makes the turn easier. All right, so here's a question from Dustin. What was one of the biggest breakthroughs technique-wise that propelled you in your training? That's a good question. I would say, okay, so before I started working with Coach V from Global Throwing, I used to try to slam my left heel forward out of the back and then like kick my right leg up and to create a lot of energy, right? And you guys may do that. A lot of people are taught to do that. But the breakthrough that allowed me to throw 64.5 meters as a relatively small discus thrower was the concept that the left foot never stops turning in the back of the circle. It never stops turning, and it comes off the ground really fast, right? So my coach used to say, drop the left knee, turn the left foot, drop the left knee, and keep your shoulders level. And so what that does is in order to do that, your lower body is incredibly tight in an incredibly fast turnaround. And so let's just say it's kind of hard here, but if this is my left foot and it's going to turn, it turns all the way until it comes off the ground. So that left foot is never stops moving. It turns, comes off the ground, and then once it's off the ground, it's rapidly coming back down to the front. And so I think the thing that changed my throwing the most was the concept of how much the left side played in the part of technique. Because I was always thinking about, what is my right leg doing? What is my right leg doing? Well, the right leg can't do anything if the left leg doesn't set it up right. And the left leg and how you turn around it, that's what enables you to sprint off of your left into the middle of the circle. That's where all the speed comes from. So I would say that's it, is the speed of the left, turning around that left, and making that back of the ring really smooth. All right, another question here from Zaya. So I started to practice the full spin, but I'm having trouble letting go of the discus. It's like I can't let it go for nothing. What can I do to let it go? Okay, so the cool part about discus is the release of the discus is a reaction. Now, I'm not saying there's not a spot when you're putting energy on the discus, you're actually throwing it, but for the most part, the way it comes out of your hand, if your technique is right, it's a reaction and you're not really in control of that. So the release and how it comes out, and if it comes out smooth and if it comes out at the right time, is completely dependent on hitting proper positions in the technique. So that's kind of back to go around to this. People who have trouble letting go of the discus means that there's something wrong with the technique. And most of the time it's because there's not tension between the shoulders and hips. So if I'm standing straight at you, like right now, my shoulders would be like this and my hips are like this. But to throw discus, we need to have them twisted. We need to have an X. Like, again, if my hips are staying towards you, twisting my shoulders. So when you twist your shoulders and the right shoulder is behind the right hip, that creates tension across your torso. And if you do it right, really all the way from your left foot all the way to the end of your right hand. And that's the tension that slings the discus out of your hand. And so I would, as you're training, maybe take some video, but see where your shoulders are compared to your hips. Because if the shoulder is not behind the hip, then you just have your arm to throw. You're just going to throw with your arm, and it's not nearly effective. And a lot of times it makes it hard to let go of the discus. All right, guys, I'm going to answer one more question, and then the live stream will be over. I will say, for those of you who question wasn't answered, I will be back live next Monday at 7 o'clock. Let me see. All right, I got one question here. Let me know how to order the shirts. I'd like to order a couple for Christmas. So the shirts I make are from Teespring. So Teespring is the website that allows YouTube creators to create merch and makes it easier for viewers to purchase. And so my store, let me see here. Okay, so it's teespring.com. So it's TEESPring.com/stores/John-Bowman. Maybe that's a hyphen. Anyways, I will put this in the description in here. What you do is you go to my page. So teespring.com/stores/John-Bowman. That's my store. All you got to do is you go to my on YouTube. Just go to my channel page, and if you scroll across, there'll be a section that says store, and that shows the shirts that are available, and it you buy them straight from Teespring. It's really simple. This shirt, for example, super good quality shirt material. It's called a Tri-Blend. You can read about it if you click on the link. And then the printing, of course, you can see it. It's pretty cool. So I have a few shirt designs, and then I have a mug. So that's how you do that. Again, I will put that in the description after this video's done being live. I'll update that, and we'll go from there. Well, that's it for today's Monday Live. I am glad you guys were here. Thank you for taking the time to ask some questions. Again, if your question wasn't answered, I'll be live again next Monday at 7 p.m. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you next week.